Your Ford is being destroyed right now, and the most painful part is that you are probably the one doing it. Not on purpose, not out of laziness, but because of 6 maintenance mistakes so widespread that I see the wreckage every single week on my shop floor. I have spent over 15 years working on Fords, and I will tell you exactly what I tell every owner who comes in with a blown engine or a dead transmission. The damage almost never happens overnight. It builds quietly, invisibly over tens of thousands of miles until one morning you turn the key and the bill that comes back is 5 figures. The owners who end up in that situation are not careless people. They change their oil. They pay attention to warning lights. They genuinely believe they are maintaining their trucks, but they are making these 6 specific errors that compound silently in the background until the damage becomes irreversible. Today we are exposing every single one of them. Mistake number 4 has wrecked more EcoBoost engines than any other single factor, and Ford will never voluntarily tell you about it. Mistake number 1 is so counterintuitive that most owners genuinely believe they are helping their engine in the moment they are cutting its life in half. Some of these mistakes might be happening in your driveway right now, so pay close attention from the start. Let's begin with something you do every single time you perform maintenance, something that sounds completely routine, but can silently devastate your engine over time. Mistake number 6 is using the wrong oil viscosity. Walk into any auto parts store and you'll find entire walls of engine oil in every viscosity imaginable: 5W20, 5W30, 10W30, 0W20. Most Ford owners grab whatever is on sale or whatever they remember using in their last vehicle. That single seemingly harmless decision accelerates wear on every moving part inside your engine from the very next cold start. Ford engineers spent years on dynamometers testing specific oil viscosities for each engine family, and those specifications exist because of physics, not marketing. The 2.7-liter and 3.5-liter EcoBoost engines require 5W30 full synthetic. Using 5W20 in these engines creates a bearing film thickness problem that you will never detect until the damage is already catastrophic. The oil film separating your crankshaft journals from the bearing surfaces becomes too thin under high load conditions. When you are towing, climbing grades, or accelerating hard onto a highway, that thin film cannot maintain adequate separation between metal surfaces. What happens next is microscopic metal-to-metal contact happening hundreds of times per minute. You cannot hear it, you cannot feel it, but I have pulled apart 3.5-liter EcoBoost engines where the bearing surfaces looked like they had been rubbed with coarse sandpaper, and the only explanation was consistent use of the wrong viscosity oil for 60,000 miles. That engine cost the owner over $8,000 to repair. The 5.0-liter Coyote Phi-8 has the opposite sensitivity. Ford specifies 5W20 for this engine, and using thicker 5W30 creates hydraulic resistance that forces the variable cam timing system to work harder with every actuation. The cam phasers depend on precise oil pressure and rapid flow through very narrow internal passages. Thicker oil moving through those passages creates pressure irregularities that wear the phaser actuators prematurely. I have seen cam phaser failures on Coyote engines directly attributable to incorrect viscosity used consistently over the life of the vehicle. The fix here costs you nothing extra. Open your oil filler cap and look at the top of it right now. Ford prints the required viscosity specification directly on the cap on most modern models. If it is not on the cap, check the sticker on your radiator support or door jamb. Use that exact specification every single time, buy full synthetic from a reputable brand, and never substitute based on what is on sale. The few dollars you save on an incorrect oil will eventually cost you thousands in engine repairs. If you have been running the wrong viscosity, do an oil change today with the correct specification. The damage from a single interval is manageable. The cumulative damage from years of incorrect viscosity absolutely is not. Mistake number 5 is ignoring coolant condition and mixing incompatible coolant types. Most Ford owners think about coolant exactly once during ownership, when the low coolant warning light appears on the dash. They stop at a parts store, grab whatever looks familiar off the shelf, pour it in, and drive away, completely unaware that they may have just introduced a chemical incompatibility into the cooling system that will silently corrode it from the inside out. This silent corrosion is hard to detect until it is severe. Ford uses a specific organic acid technology formulation, Motorcraft Orange or Gold coolant. Mixing it with conventional green coolant or with hybrid organic acid and silicate coolants from other manufacturers creates a chemical reaction that degrades both formulas. The result is a sludgy, neutralized mixture that loses its corrosion protection and begins clogging small passages in the radiator, the heater core, and engine coolant galleries. Modern Ford EcoBoost engines run at higher operating temperatures than naturally aspirated engines because forced induction places sustained thermal load on the cooling system. These engines need coolant that preserves its protective chemistry through repeated high-temperature cycles. When you compromise that chemistry by mixing coolant types, the corrosion inhibitors fail rapidly. Aluminum components throughout the engine and cooling system, including the water pump housing, thermostat housing, and intake manifold passages, begin corroding internally at a rate the exterior will never show. By the time you have a coolant leak from one of those corroded components, the damage has been progressing for years. Ford's coolant change interval is 100,000 miles, or 10 years for the original factory fill, and 50,000 miles for every subsequent change. The overwhelming majority of Ford owners never change their coolant at all, running it past 150,000 miles with completely depleted inhibitor packages, while the cooling system corrodes from the inside. A complete coolant flush and refill costs $100 to $150. A water pump, heater core, or coolant housing failure from internal corrosion costs $800 to $2,000 or more. Schedule your coolant service. Use only the correct Ford specified formulation. Never top off with an incompatible coolant, regardless of what the store associate recommends. Mistake number 4 is skipping the fuel induction service on direct injection EcoBoost engines, and this one has quietly destroyed more Ford powertrains than almost anything else on this list. EcoBoost engines use gasoline direct injection, which means the fuel injectors spray fuel directly into the combustion chamber rather than into the intake ports upstream of the valves. This design is highly efficient and gives excellent power density, but it has one serious long-term consequence that Ford does not prominently advertise. Traditional port-injected engines had fuel constantly washing over the back faces of the intake valves during operation, cleaning off accumulated oil residue and carbon deposits with every injection event. Direct injection engines have no such cleaning effect. The intake valves sit in the intake stream with zero fuel contact, exposed only to incoming air and to the oil vapor that the positive crankcase ventilation system continuously routes back through the intake. That oil vapor coats the back of the intake valves with every engine revolution. Over thousands of miles, it bakes onto the hot valve surfaces and builds up layer after layer of hard carbon deposits that look like rough, dark cauliflower growths around the valve head. As those deposits grow, they restrict the effective flow area through the valve opening, reduce cylinder filling efficiency, and create turbulence in the intake charge that disrupts combustion. I have inspected EcoBoost engines at 60,000 miles with carbon buildup so severe that usable valve opening area was reduced by 30 to 40%. Those engines had been misdiagnosed with fuel injector problems, ignition coil issues, and vacuum leaks for months before the actual cause was identified. One induction cleaning service fixed everything, but by that point the incomplete combustion events had been causing additional wear on the piston rings and cylinder walls for a long time. Ford does not include intake valve cleaning in its factory maintenance schedule. The correct service is called walnut blasting, where finely crushed walnut shell media is blasted through the intake ports under pressure to physically abrade the carbon deposits off the valve surfaces without damaging the metal. This service costs $200 to $400 depending on the shop and the severity of the buildup, and it should be performed every 30,000 to 40,000 miles on any EcoBoost direct injection engine. If your EcoBoost has never had this service and has more than 50,000 miles on the odometer, this is your highest priority maintenance item right now. If you're finding this valuable, subscribe right now and hit the notification bell, because the next 3 mistakes are where the most catastrophic and expensive damage happens, and mistake number 1 is something I'm almost certain you've done within the last month. Mistake number 3 is changing your oil at the wrong interval for your actual driving conditions rather than the ideal conditions Ford used to calculate its recommendations. Ford's stated oil change interval of up to 10,000 miles using full synthetic motorcraft oil sounds perfectly reasonable. What Ford does not emphasize is that this interval assumes ideal operating conditions, a fully warmed engine, primarily highway driving, moderate ambient temperatures, and no towing. The vast majority of Ford owners do not drive in those conditions. Short commutes, sustained stop-and-go traffic, cold climate operation, and seasonal towing all classify as severe service, and severe service conditions cut the appropriate oil change interval to roughly half of what the sticker on your windshield suggests. Here is what is happening to your oil in real-world use. Every cold start sends small amounts of unburned fuel past the piston rings into the crankcase, diluting the oil and reducing its viscosity. Short trips that do not allow the engine to fully warm up compound this problem because combustion temperatures never get high enough to burn off the accumulated fuel contamination. Stop-and-go driving creates constant thermal cycling that accelerates breakdown of the oil's additive package. Each of these factors individually pushes you toward a shorter change interval. Together, they demand it. When degraded oil stops maintaining proper film thickness on the cam phaser components and timing chain guides, the wear progression accelerates dramatically. I have replaced timing chains on F-150s at 80,000 miles because the owner stretched oil changes to the maximum stated interval while doing exclusively short-trip city driving. That repair cost over $2,500 and was entirely preventable. Change your oil every 5,000 to 6,000 miles if you do primarily city driving, short trips, or regular towing. Reserve the 7,500 to 10,000 mile interval for vehicles doing predominantly highway miles under normal conditions. The additional cost of more frequent changes is a fraction of what any single major engine repair will cost you. Mistake number 2 is accepting Ford's lifetime transmission fluid designation and never servicing your transmission fluid. Ford rates the fluid in many of its automatic transmissions as a lifetime fill, meaning no change is required for the life of the vehicle. That designation has caused more transmission failures than almost any other single maintenance oversight I have dealt with in 15 years. There is no such thing as lifetime transmission fluid. There is only fluid that was maintained and fluid that was allowed to degrade until the transmission it was supposed to protect failed. Automatic transmission fluid serves multiple simultaneous functions. It lubricates every gear, bearing, and bushing inside the unit. It provides the hydraulic pressure that actuates clutch packs and shifts gears. It transfers heat away from friction surfaces. It also contains friction modifiers that allow clutch packs to engage smoothly without shuddering or slipping. Every one of those properties degrades with heat exposure and use. The friction modifiers typically fail first, usually somewhere between 50,000 and 60,000 miles of normal use. When they are gone, clutch pack engagement becomes inconsistent. The symptom is a subtle shudder during light acceleration, most noticeable at highway speeds when the torque converter clutch is locked. Ford's 10-speed automatic transmission, used in current F-150s and Explorers, is particularly unforgiving of degraded fluid because its tighter tolerances and additional clutch packs demand fluid in proper condition to function correctly. I have had multiple 10-speed units come in with internal clutch damage at 80,000 miles, with original fluid that had turned dark brown, smelled burnt, and had lost its friction modifier content entirely. Several of those transmissions required full rebuilds, costing $4,000 to $6,000. A transmission fluid service at the correct interval costs $150 to $250. Perform it every 50,000 to 60,000 miles under normal use, and every 30,000 to 40,000 miles if you tow regularly. Use only the Ford-specified Mercon variant for your specific transmission, because using the wrong Mercon fluid is as harmful as using no fluid at all. Mistake number 1 is driving aggressively with a cold engine before it reaches operating temperature. I am confident you have done this recently because almost every driver does it without thinking. You start your truck on a cold morning, let it idle for 30 seconds while you get situated, and then pull out and drive at a normal pace. You might even give it a bit of throttle getting onto a main road. That sequence feels completely normal. But in those first few minutes of operation, before the engine oil has reached its full working viscosity, and before the metal components have thermally expanded to their designed operating clearances, every aggressive throttle input drives accelerated wear across every moving surface in the engine. Cold engine oil is substantially more viscous than fully warmed oil. It flows more slowly through the oil passages and takes longer to reach the upper valve train, the cam phasers, the timing chain tensioners, and the variable cam timing components. During that window of reduced oil delivery, every revolution of the crankshaft is relying on the residual oil film from the previous operating cycle. For EcoBoost engines, where the cam phasers and turbocharger bearings depend on immediate, full oil pressure and flow, this cold start period represents the highest wear window of every drive cycle. When you push the throttle aggressively before the coolant temperature gauge moves toward its normal operating range, you are demanding performance from an engine whose piston rings have not fully seated, whose valve stem seals are still cold and stiff, and whose cylinder bores are operating at clearances slightly tighter than their design because the metal has not reached full operating temperature. Combustion under these conditions is less efficient, more fuel enters the crankcase and dilutes the oil, and every component is asked to perform under conditions it was not designed to handle. I have seen cam phaser failures, timing chain stretch, and premature cylinder wall wear directly and consistently linked to owners who drove aggressively from cold starts. These were not owners skipping oil changes. They were making this one habitual mistake over 80,000 miles and arriving at my shop with repair needs between $3,000 and $5,500. The solution costs absolutely nothing. After a cold start, drive gently for the first 2 to 3 minutes. Keep engine speed below 2,500 revolutions per minute. Avoid hard acceleration until the coolant temperature gauge begins moving toward its normal midpoint. You do not need to sit and idle. Gentle driving actually warms the engine faster than stationary idling does. You simply need to give the oil time to fully circulate and the components time to reach their designed operating temperatures before you demand anything from them. This single habit, practiced consistently, will extend your engine life more than almost any other action you can take. It costs no money, requires no tools, and takes under 3 minutes. It just requires you to make a deliberate choice every morning instead of operating on autopilot. These 6 mistakes are destroying Ford engines right now in driveways and parking lots everywhere. Correct oil viscosity, proper coolant maintenance, regular induction service on EcoBoost engines, realistic oil change intervals matched to your actual driving conditions, timely transmission fluid changes, and protecting your engine during the cold start warm-up window. None of these require specialized skills. None require expensive tools. They just require knowing what to do and actually committing to doing it. Go check your oil filler cap for the correct viscosity today. Look up your coolant type and when it was last changed. Put the EcoBoost induction service on your maintenance calendar if it's overdue. And tomorrow morning, give your engine the 2 minutes it needs before you ask anything of it. If this information is going to save your engine, subscribe now and hit the bell so you never miss a video like this one. Drop a comment below telling me which of these mistakes you've been making, because I can promise you are not alone. And share this with every Ford owner you know, because this information will save real money for anyone who watches it. I'll see you in the next one.